Whatever it takes. Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
Going into the opening weekend, let's just talk about what your expectations potentially could have been, and then how they might have been exceeded. What were you guys hoping happened, and then what actually happened over opening weekend?
I mean, look, like when you're charged with like writing the final chapter of the book, you know, and executing it, you know, our hope was that with any favorite story, you always want the end to be the best part of the story, you know. So that was like really what we were hoping to do. You know, I don't know, you know, even if we got anywhere close to that, you know, that was our aspiration, and it seems like, at least for some people on some levels, that we delivered an ending that seems satisfying.
It's always about the narrative too of these movies in the marketplace. How did it do? Did it break a record? Did it beat the last one? That stuff is really critical to the life of a movie, and of course, we were hoping that it was going to break the international record. Just because that's a story, right? So the international single weekend box office. And then you're hoping and praying that it beats the domestic, which was set by Infinity War last year. Otherwise, frankly, to some people it looks like a failure, you know? So you have to, like, it's crazy that that a movie like this has this kind of demands on it. But we saw international numbers coming in on Tuesday and Wednesday of opening week because it was coming from Australia and the Asian markets, from China, Philippines, and the numbers were huge. So especially the China numbers, they were astronomical. So we started to get a good sense that, oh, maybe we can catch fire here and something much bigger can happen.
But I gotta be honest with you, like I'm almost disappointed that the movie did so well, because it's like the box office story has literally dominated the conversation, and it's sort of not the most interesting part of the story.
Right?
So,
yeah. Not in our
for
circles.
me, yeah,
not
exactly,
in our circles.
You know, we obviously love the movie, and one of the things I find interesting is, again, this is the non-spoiler part of our conversation, is the spoiler window. And there's been a lot of people. I saw a great tweet today from Jacob Tremblay talking about the idea that anybody who spoils films for somebody it's a form of bullying. Like, you're basically taking away someone's happiness by spoiling it for them, and that person's getting, you know, something ruined for them. As directors of these films, what is the proper spoiler window? I mean, in the sense of, how do you want people to experience it? Like, can you talk about it in 2 weeks? Like, where do you feel?
I think you have to be fair about it, because we are, as you know, exceedingly anti-spoiler, and I feel it for the same reason. It's bullying. It could even be sociopathic to go online or walk out of a theater like some guy did and shout out the end of a movie while a bunch of people are standing in line waiting to go see it, and they've got 10 years of their life and their time and their emotions invested in it. It's a despicable thing to do. But I think you have to be fair. 2 weekends feels like enough time for everyone to get to see it. And then people should be, because you also want people to be able to talk about it. And so at a certain point, I think after the second weekend, it's okay to start conversing.
Now that both parts are out, talk to us about how much of Endgame did you film or was ready at the time when Infinity War came out, and discussing where they were going to break and how they were going to flow into each other, now that we can sort of think about them as 2 parts and 1 large part.
Yeah. We had shot, I would say, probably about 85% of Endgame by the time that Infinity War came out.
Wow.
The original intention was to shoot 100% of it. But basically what happened was, so we shot Infinity War first, and then we started shooting Endgame while we're editing Infinity War. And we finally got to the point where we really needed to turn all our attention to Infinity War in order to get the movie finished properly in the post-production process. So we stopped shooting earlier than we'd anticipated.
We're exhausted because they started to overlap with each other.
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
And trying to get, just trying to make one of these movies is historic. I mean, these are the most expensive movies ever made, and we're shooting them at the same time, and we had to get one out while we were still shooting the other one. It started to get crazy. So we decided that we were going to hold the third act of, which was the hardest part of the movie, of Endgame until the fall.
Because you were locked into the date, too. It's not you
Exactly.
are.
We're hurling toward a date.
And frankly, I think that, like, when you look at these, I think that we always were like, oh my God, never shoot back-to-back again. That was insane. But I don't think we would have had the same momentum in between movies were they not a year apart.
Right.
A year is long enough to sustain a dialogue, a collective dialogue. 2 years I think that it starts to dissipate and other things start to occupy people's focus.
Yeah, and last non-spoiler question for you, focusing specifically on Infinity War. I was lucky enough to go to the press conference and ask this question to Mr. Downey Jr., but not to you. I was curious from a filmmaking standpoint, when you filmed the characters turning to dust in Infinity War specifically, how you achieve, I know that obviously there's CG, but how do you achieve that shot? Like, what do you tell the actors to do? Do they know what's going on with their character at that exact moment? And also, specifically the Spider-Man moment, just kind of having that emotional moment with Tony and Spider-Man in Infinity War. Just how you achieve that from a filmmaking level.
Yeah, that was, we went through a lot of experimentation with that, to be honest with you, because it's a difficult thing to play, and it could, if you don't handle it properly, it could end up unintentionally being a little silly. You know what I mean? So you have to. So we did rehearse with the actors quite a bit on set about how they would perform in that moment. We experimented with a few things, and by the way, that experimentation also continued into our visual effects process. We did try many different versions of what it would look like on a visual effects level as they disintegrated.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a bit of a fishing expedition. But basically, we sort of wanted to, we were trying to focus, like always, we always try to focus on the emotional experience of the actor, in the moment. So, and that's sort of what were they feeling at that moment where they felt something happening to them like that they couldn't control, they couldn't stop, especially those characters who it was happening to after they had seen another character already dissipate. So,
obviously pulling at your heartstrings. Cap seeing Bucky, Okoye seeing Black Panther, Tony seeing Peter. These are all very emotionally charged relationships. And the Peter scene, I think we had done a take or two. We knew we wanted to save it for the last one. And we'd done a take or two where it played as quick as all the other ones. We thought, this has to be climactic. He's got spider sense, so he could feel it coming before it actually gets him. And we thought, wouldn't it be interesting too if like your own emotional or spiritual core could hold it off for a second or two longer than someone else, because this is a magical event. It's not, this is nothing that's based on anything in the physical universe. So, and then we just started talking to Tom and Downey. Downey's always extremely helpful in blocking. And we started saying it's not having the emotional impact it needs to have. Tom, what if, you're a kid, this is scaring the shit out of you. What if this is something that you don't want to have happen? You can't, you're scared, and what would, you don't want to go. So what would happen? And then he started improvising, I don't want to go. And Downey, I think it helps with the blocking of him falling into Robert and Robert laying him down on the ground. And then... So it was all, and frankly, it took about 5 minutes or 10 minutes just to, the next take we went out and they nailed it and that was it. And everybody was crying on set.
So we're going to jump into spoilers now. This is the end of the non-spoiler discussion. We're going to hit you with some rapid fire stuff because we don't have a ton of time. We're getting ready to go live. My first question, then we'll go to Sean, is the sequences during the time heist. How much of that was actually reshot, or how much of it was real footage from the original MCU films?
I would say it was 95% reshot.
Yeah,
wow! Are you kidding me?
Oh my gosh!
No. Even like Star-Lord's walk. Did you do that again and everything?
Pieces.
We did
half
parts of it again. Yeah.
What about
maybe actually it's probably 80-20 now. They think.
Okay. Less than half of it, I think, on that one. Yeah.
What about the Avengers 1 stuff in New York? That was all reshot?
Okay, so no, those pieces were original, but what we did was created a news shot where we connected them in an overhead. Where the camera pans from, the Avengers circling up over to our guys arriving. And then, of course, that's all new footage of the Hulk coming in and smashing a Chitauri with the car.
I mean, we wanted to ride the balance. We all have very powerful emotional triggers when we see those shots. So we wanted to have that moment, those moments, but we needed to bed them into the language.
Yeah, where Loki asked for his drink, it completely reshot. The whole thing was reshot.
So
we brought Hiddleston back. We had all the actors in makeup so they look like they did years ago, and
All right, I'm gonna go geeky. What are the rules when you return the Soul Stone? And does Cap encounter Red Skull?
He would have to encounter Red Skull. And nobody knows what the rules are when you return the Soul
Nobody
Stone.
knows.
We'd have to.
But knowing Red Skull, he probably has a no money back policy.
So with the ending of Cap, and obviously him sitting there in his old age, does that affect anything that happened with Captain America in this current timeline we live in?
No, because this is a multiverse timeline, right? So the Hulk says it in the movie, right? Is that if if you're in the present and you go to the past, that former present becomes your past. It always exists, right?
Right,
Like,
that's right.
And now you're in the past, and that becomes your new present.
Right.
And any choices you make would define a new future. This is a multiverse timeline. Like, so it's sort of this. It's quantum physics. This notion that like there are a million timelines that exist.
Wow.
Based on Kevin, had you not just said "wow" there, we would have been in a different timeline.
Sorry, I'm geeking out. That's pretty. I can't believe you reshot some of that stuff. Go ahead, Sean. Sorry.
What was Hemsworth's reaction to the fact that he beat Lebowski Thor for the duration of it?
Hemsworth, he loved it.
Yeah, I mean, he was so ignited by the work that he had done with Taika in Ragnarok that he was definitely in a zone where he was really excited about being adventurous and edgy with what Thor could be and where he could go. So yeah, it was. I think the only downside for the whole experience for Hemsworth with that was the fat suit was quite heavy.
Okay, so he didn't let himself go or stop working out or anything.
No, because we had to keep. It was like the proximity of shooting these things was pretty tight.
Didn't allow for time for him to do that.
That's really funny.
But
Plus, we were doing reshoots on Infinity War while we were shooting
exactly
Endgame. So yeah,
And is he a Guardian now?
who knows?
Two-part question.
He's an Asgardian.
Asgardian. I love that line. Asgardian to the galaxy. All right, so two-part question. One, no ending credits choice, and that sound we hear in the end, is that from the Iron Man cave from the
That is
first Iron Man?
correct, yes.
What is that supposed to mean? Future
That
possibilities?
that was just
a
an
callback.
homage to the character.
And then Ty. That's a really interesting shot because a lot of people walked out and they go, "Who was that kid?" I mean, you know him from
Yep.
Iron Man 3, Shane Black. Was there a question in your mind that people might not remember who he was?
100%. Because every time we screened it, people would ask us.
literally.
I didn't know.
I don't know if there's
But
been
by the
ever
way-
been a single person who has recognized.
I mean,
that
he's
scene.
3 times
looks
taller
so
than he was.
different.
when
Yeah,
he
so
was-
different.
So I think he's grown up so much that it's it's a deep Easter egg. But I feel like that's what's compelling about the Marvel universe. By the way, there's quite a few Easter eggs in the movie that people still haven't
By the way,
identified.
you guys will appreciate this. So, in order to do that shot, we had to amass that cast. We rehearsed that shot like crazy. I mean, we set up the camera move. We
Are they
had
all there?
stand-ins. No, not while we were rehearsing. We spent
No, but
days.
yes, they all are in.
Oh
that
yeah, they're
shot.
all in that shot.
That
But
is done.
and
that is
because
a
they were all
single
going to be in
shot.
the shot, we spent days setting that shot up. Days, okay.
Right.
So we had the entire camera move figured
Rehearsed
out
it
very
with doubles.
specifically. The time of day, we had everything perfect, right? So we get there on the day. We finally put the actors in the shot for the first time,
All of them.
Right.
and we have this moment on set where he and I go into a panic attack over time because we're having the same.
Who is this guy?
Is anyone gonna get it? But
That's amazing.
at the end of the day, it's important to have Easter eggs, and that's what makes the Marvel universe so special.
I got time for 2 more quick questions. Go
Yeah.
ahead, Sean.
All right. Was it always Tony dies and Steve lives? And when you make the decision as storytellers that we're going to eliminate big characters like Black Widow and Cap,
Well, we made that decision early on.
Okay.
Right? So 3 years ago, we made that
who
decision.
okays it? Does Kevin have to?
Well,
okay
yeah,
it?
I mean, what it is a conversation with Anth and I, Marcus McFeely, Trin Tran, who's the executive producer, works at Marvel, and Kevin.
Yeah.
6 of us sit in a room and we debate this stuff.
Okay.
And why, and in a certain sense, Tony Stark was always meant to die. He's a very complicated character who had a haunted, existence.
Right.
And I think as a futurist, could always see that the end of humanity was on the horizon, and he could not rest. He couldn't rest spiritually until he defeated what was coming for humanity.
Sure.
Thanos. In a way, that story that we've been telling with Cap since Winter Soldier is this one of loss and longing. And what's interesting about him is he's been on a journey from his identity as Captain America to his identity as Steve Rogers and fully embracing Steve Rogers by the end of his journey.
Your final shot is so brilliant.
Yeah. Oh
it's
my
the shot we all
God.
dream of.
Yeah.
And when it happens, you can't believe it's actually happening. It's fantastic.
Chris Marcus put it very simply. One of the writers, he said, it's like Tony Stark has been on a journey of sort of learning how to be more selfless, and Cap has been on a journey of trying to realize how to sort of actualize himself and his individuality, and that's basically their arcs. That's what led them both to their respective endings.
Right. That arc was brilliant. And last thing for you, when I interviewed you for the TV junket, I asked you about your first and last shot you shot in your career of the MCU so far. You said your first shot ever was Winter Soldier, and it was the elevator scene.
That's right.
So final question for you, since you couldn't answer it then, what is the final shot you wrapped on?
You're going to freak.
Yeah.
Am I?
I am
Iron Man? That's the
That
last
was the
thing
last
you shot?
Yeah.
Oh my God! Was that planned?
well.
How is that possible?
I know, you're right. How is that possible? And I'll tell you.
And it's a reshoot.
It's a reshoot
was a
because
reshoot.
he originally, when he snapped, he didn't say I am Iron Man. The idea came up while we were in post production. I don't remember exactly where the idea
Jeff
came
Ford.
from. Jeff Ford,
Our editor.
yeah.
So we're
Right.
sitting in editorial and we're reworking that
I'm
sequence.
gonna start crying here.
And,
This is too much.
and Thanos says, "I am inevitable." And we're like, we need a response to that.
Right.
What is the response?
Because we
to
knew we were
that?
going to do some pickups.
And our editor goes, "How about I am Iron Man?" And we're like, "That's it. Let's get the cameras out."
we must shoot that. We have to shoot that.
That is
That's incredible.
iconic.
And when you told Downey, what was his reaction?
This is great
It's
too.
an interesting story. I had dinner with him like 2 weeks before we were supposed to shoot it. And he was like, I don't want to go back and get in that emotional state. It's hard. And, and crazily enough, Joel Silver, the producer, was
Really?
at the dinner.
Right.
He's an old buddy of Robert's.
Yeah.
And Joel jumps in and he's like, "Robert, what are you talking about? That's like the greatest line I've ever heard. You got to say this line. You have to do this." So thank God that Joel Silver was at dinner because he helped us talk Robert into doing that line.
When I sat down with you guys at the junket, there was a moment in the interview where I asked about a specific scene where Cap and Tony say, "Do you trust me?" "I do." You made a joke that it wasn't in the movie. I was just curious, without spoiling the context of it. It is in the film, but can you talk
But
about...
not in that construction.
Right.
That handshake is actually stolen from an earlier scene in the movie.
Really?
Yes, they don't shake hands.
Right, in the
that
scene they don't,
sequence,
right.
So that's what I was getting at. That's how we tend to manipulate footage to create a moment in a trailer that isn't necessarily a moment from a movie. So people are watching that trailer, and again, I'm saying that's not in the movie contextually the way that it's done because that's not the repair moment. The repair moment actually happens in the movie 45 minutes before that.
Right. And so that handshake...
We're going to let you get to your point about this.
No, I just want to know, like we were in that moment. So now your profile picture on Instagram, I believe, is your reaction to that moment. Who created that? Was that you?
No, that was not
No,
me.
I put it up.
That's all I wanted to know. That's all I wanted.
He became a meme. I was like, all right, we always try to embrace the memes and be very deprecating and referential about to fans.
Right,
That's amazing. All right, we got to wrap up. I want to thank you
Yes.
to Lana, by the way, for shooting this interview for us. You
Yes.
are the greatest for holding that camera. Thank you
Yes.
so much. Guys, thank you so much for
Thank you
joining us.
so
Thank you
much,
for
guys.
nerding out. Obviously,
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Yeah, we wanted to ask you so many
was great.
questions, but thank you guys so much.
It was a real thrill to talk to you
Thank
guys
you,
about it.
man.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
so
Really
much.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Kevin,
That's
always
crazy, like the
thank you
final
so much.
shot, man.
Yeah.
Oh my
No.
god.
You guys can talk about it. I'm so glad you can
Oh,
get
by
it
the
off your
way,
chest.
we did that shot. We did that shot at a studio in Los Angeles called Raleigh Studio.
This is crazy.
And the stage that we shot that shot on was adjacent to the stage where Robert Downey Jr. screen tested for Iron Man.
Oh my
Are you
god!
Isn't that
kidding
crazy?
me? Kidding me?
I
Like,
can't. It's so
is that-
crazy.
Can we keep that on the audio?
Yeah,
that
yeah,
part?
absolutely.
Okay, cool. Is that
I'm still recording.
I have stopped recording.
I have not stopped
Can we
recording.
keep that in?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
absolutely.
Anthony says okay. You approve.